Happy New Year and welcome to episode 24 of the All Things Are podcast. We have made our way out to Stafford and we are joined by David Wells, aka Dak, from Environmental Training Centre. Thank you very much for having us down, mate. And first impressions is, wow.
That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Say, I think you're the only guy in the UK who's got a tree inside of his warehouse, well, building at the moment.
That we know of.
Yeah. But we're definitely, I've got a lot of questions to ask you about this.
Fire away.
Well, my first question is, how did you get started in the industry?
Okay, probably like a lot of people, through a friend. Initially, I sort of sat in my mate's bedroom window while he was playing computer games, and a friend of his turned up to try out his new Comet Butterfly, it was back then, and I was sort of watching him out the window. And
You just remember that as an old Honda.
it is, yeah. And for him, it was brand new. It was like, whoa, Comet.
50, maybe even 15 years ago, that?
Old.
Yeah, because I had one, I remember seeing it hung up going, I don't even know what that brand is.
Yeah.
Like, I knew what Skylar said.
No one knows what they are now.
Yeah, no, because really, you'll have to remind me, is it the old red and blue one, or I might be wrong on it?
Red and grey, his was.
Red and grey, and did it have that weird strap that goes underneath it, or was it?
No, they did have the Buisson seat one.
That's it, yeah.
They did have that, but no, this was the Comet Butterfly, which was just the train, sort of tree climbing.
And it's just down here, we've got a Tree Motion one.
Tree Motion and the old, I think that's an old Skylar Tech or something like that, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to have to do an episode. You just gave me another idea now. Old tree kits.
Oh, there's some amazing old bits and bobs. Rob, the director, he's been going for in tree work for probably 30 years now, so he's got some right old sort of gems.
Still a bit of free polyclimber.
Yeah, three strand with a little bit of wire crimped on as an attachment point. So yeah, I mean, scary what they used to do. Definitely real then.
Yeah, compared to us lot nowadays, we've got SRT and our zigzags and all that stuff.
That's it.
We were talking about the zigzag as well, because I have a bit of a love-hate relationship.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Everyone knows my relationship. But yeah, I'll get back onto the questions that I originally had for you. So you're in your mate's bedroom, Comet Butterfly harness.
Yeah, so it was a case of, I was watching him. I used to do a bit of rock climbing for fun and sort of shouted out the window, "Do you get paid for that?" Yeah. And he was like, "Well, yeah, my boss has just bought me this new harness," sort of thing. And I got talking to him and thought, this seems like quite a cool way to earn money. At the time, I was sort of studying. I was sort of on the route to become a paramedic, and that was sort of my aim.
Yeah.
Must admit, was working with the ambulance service, was getting very disillusioned with humanity. Getting spat at on Friday nights for trying to help someone.
I've never understand how people can do that.
No.
Never understood.
I mean, drugs and alcohol, I suppose, but yeah, I mean, anyway.
Oh yeah.
So it was a case of he offered me a bit of work, working with him and his boss on weekends. That slowly crept into, I need you Monday and Tuesday. Can you sack off college? And in the end, dropped out of college, got into tree work. Started off self-employed, but working for a company. That company then moved to Europe, to France specifically. And I sort of carried on with the guys, got taken under the wing of a very, very good arborist, Andrew Sheldon Shed. He's a well-known guy sort of around this area. And that's how it began, really.
I think that happens to quite a few lads where they'll be in college, they'll be learning how to become a tree surgeon. Yeah. And then, because I've had it personally with me and a couple of my lads, where you can see something in them and you say, look, I could really do with you 5 days a week and I can make you a way better surgeon than just getting your basics in college. Yeah. I did that specifically with one lad, and it turned out he come on to be one of my managers for the team.
Yeah.
Because he was useless. I love him to bits. He was useless when it come down to, right, identify this tree, tell me the characteristics.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know, right. See these 17 greenhouses underneath, I don't need to drop a branch and it would be done. Perfect.
I think that's the thing with this industry. This industry caters for so many different personalities, work styles. If you hate the rain, well, okay, if you hate the rain, you probably shouldn't be in trees, but you could get into consultancy, where you can pick and choose when you do your site visit. Or you could literally, I know people that only want to drag brash. You know, they're not interested in climbing.
I'm one of them.
They're not interested in using pickuses and resi drills and stuff. They just want to drag brash, earn the money, and go home.
Because it is easy money, dragging brash. Like, obviously, college, groundsman, climber, team leader, company owner was my I can't think of the word.
Route into the industry. Yeah. I mean, you were lucky in that sense that you went to college. I mean, I didn't know about tree work until sort of past that point. You know, looking back, would have loved to have gone and studied art, but at 16, that just, you know, I didn't even know the industry existed. I was a country boy, but
I
cutting trees down was what farmers did.
So when I was finishing secondary school, I was doing 2 days a week doing horticulture.
Okay.
And it was just, I was on the same estate with the lads were doing trees.
Yeah.
And we literally walking through and I heard this noise, didn't know it was a chainsaw. I heard it, and then I look up and there's lads up a tree and I'm going, oh, I kind of like that. What's this? And he went, what's arboriculture? I was like, horticulture, arboriculture. Oh, hang on. So started getting into it, started understanding it. Didn't realise I was shit scared of heights at the time until I was in the tree and started questioning my beliefs in everything. But it was a lot. Again, I can now say to a lot of lads, because I've got the experience, start off as a groundsman, go do a team leader, and when your body's run down enough, don't think you've got to leave the industry. Yeah. Because you can go off to do the consultancy, you can retrain in the... I'm forgetting my words today. You can tell it's my first podcast back after a while.
We're all a bit rusty.
And then you can do a completely different route, which I don't know anyone has done until today, become an assessor/trainer. Yeah. That's another way of doing it.
Yeah. Well, I did have to make a very conscious decision, really, on where my career was going in tree work. I was very aware of, you know, the older boys that I was working with who were struggling with the arthritises and the you know, halves and stuff like that. And breaking my body wasn't a long-term thing. You know, I would have joined the military for that. Yeah. Which luckily I did get a close call out of that. But yeah, no, probably about 5 or 6 years into the industry, it was a case of I need to plan for the future. You know, so I bit the bullet, went back to Myosco. I say went back to, did online foundation degree at Myosco. And that sort of, gave me the opportunities to explore the different doors, if that makes sense. Yeah. You know.
So did you ever go to the Preston campus? Because that's where I did my training.
Never did.
But I did Croxteth instead.
No, got a certificate. Never actually went there.
You one of these online arborists?
Yes, I am. Yeah. Luckily, I could back it up with years actually doing the job. So that was really nice to sort of go from the practical side of, you know, having cut trees and seeing how they react and whatnot, and then actually learn all the sort of theory side, which I'd sort of put quite a lot of effort into pre-uni. But one thing that does frustrate a lot of people in the industry is you will get people who come straight out of uni. They've never climbed a tree, never cut a tree in their life. And then the next thing you know, they're telling you X, Y, and Z's wrong, you know, and it's like, well, trees aren't always, there's not a hard and fast rule for trees, is there? Nope. Let's just say that. So
I've had lads, and I've seen lads even nowadays who would go to college and then go, right, I've got my qualifications, I've spent thousands on kit, I'll have $250 a day off. Yeah.
I had that so often. Have people come out of courses, you know, it seems to be a college-driven thing as well. I might be taking this completely out of turn, but certainly when I was interviewing people for new starter roles when I was a contracts manager, I'd have people saying, oh, well, college told me I should be earning 180 a day or 150 a day. And it's like, well, with all due respect, you may have a level 2 ARB, but you haven't got a chainsaw ticket, you haven't got a climbing ticket. You've never actually done a day's work.
And this is where I'm going to get hate off colleges at the moment. But when was the last time that teacher climbed a tree or actually worked in the real world? Because I certainly know the people who educated me, I will say that I got taught to a very high standard because he was incredibly hard on us, but he hadn't been on the saw for like 15 odd years. So it had been a while, and some of his techniques were a little bit rusty because I'd go out in the field in all my brand new still gear, and I'd do one thing, and the owner would be like, what are you doing that for? We're not done that since the early 2000s. I've just been trained.
That's That is yeah, I'm with you there. I understand where they're coming from, because now my job is to train.
Yeah.
You know, my job is not to go out and do production climbing. However, as an educator, it is vital that you keep up to date with modern technology, with new techniques. You know, I do go out with the lads rarely, I'll be honest, but I do go out with them now and again just to, you know, keep tabs. I speak to other trainers a lot, you know. In terms of my theory knowledge, I'm a technician member of the Arbor Association, so I have to keep up with my CPD in terms of the theory aspect. But certainly, and it is one thing that we're hoping to do next year, is a bit more standard setting with our subcontractor assessors and instructors, to make sure that we are teaching the latest techniques. Going back to slightly the colleges, and one thing, my biggest issue with colleges is that they will say to a student, right, when you leave here, you'll earn this much money.
Yeah.
But then I've seen several adverts recently for proper colleges, you know, as opposed to an independent training provider like us, but a proper college that has all the experience, all the money, all the government support and everything, and they're paying trainers 18 grand a year.
Jeez.
But those trainers are then expected to tell their students that they'll be earning 35, 40 grand a year, you know, £200 a day every day. There's a big disconnect between what colleges are paying and the caliber of assessors and instructors compared to what they're telling the students. So
I had a father-in-law many, many moons ago who said to me, when you become a trainer or a teacher, it's because you can no longer do the job. And that sat with me for like
those
quite
who
a
can't
while.
teach.
Yeah, those who can't do, or something like that, wasn't it? It sat with me for a while, and it always comes back to me every now and again going, well, you're teaching it, which means you can't do it anymore. It's one of those personal things where I have to go, oh, it's bullshit. I'll just leave that in the past.
Yeah, I do tend to disagree there. I mean, certainly maybe in some aspects, not tree work though, because tree work, you still, as an instructor, you still have to demonstrate. You have to get the students out of those tricky situations when, you know, they just don't look at the tree correctly and it sits back on their saw and they're panicking. You know, it's just little things like that. I think to be an instructor, you need to be a special kind of person, in the sense that it's not necessarily about what you know, it's how you deliver what you know, and it's getting that across to people is the biggest thing. That's sort of some of the feedback that I've had personally from other instructors and students, is the way that the instructors here get things across. You know, we're very calm, we're very understanding. We don't take that old line approach of get up there, get it done. I don't care if you're scared. What are you, a wuss? You know, we've had some horrific stories and some big companies that have decided to use us because they won't use other training providers because they have belittled the students, you know, and things like that, which is unacceptable in 2022.
Yeah, that's still been a thing in the industry. I'm guilty of it back in the day, of saying, look, just get up the tree. We're here. You've kind of done this career for a couple of years.
Yes.
But I will stand there and there's one tree I will full outright refuse. And I've got out to quote it.
Yeah.
I went, no. And even when my freelancing days, where he's went, got a bit of a tree for you today. And I went, is it a pop? Is it a populist tree? And I went, yeah. I went, I'm not climbing it.
Yeah.
Like, well, why not, mate? Because all I've heard is those things snap out constantly.
Yeah,
and that's
lad. But that's a big thing to do. You know, that's a big thing to do, Tom, is to understand where your limits are and what your... I always say it to people, because unfortunately I have witnessed severe accidents in this industry. We don't get paid enough to not go home. We are not in the military or in the police where we're expecting, you know, you sign a will to say that, you know, I'm putting myself in the firing line. We don't do that with tree work.
No, we don't.
Tree work is as safe as you make tree work.
Yeah, we don't. But the price of a groundsman and a climber will never come close to it. It's only been this year, mainly down to COVID. Yeah. Because we'll get onto employment later. People are screaming out for lads, and I've seen jobs at the moment where colleges can say, oh, you can earn 45 to 50 grand. Yeah. There's a job just outside of London as a team leader.
For the top end guys.
Yeah, 45 grand for a team leader. And I'm going, oh, I might jack in podcasting for a couple of
months. I saw the same advert. Yeah.
It's just absolutely insane. But I agree when people say, well, that's where the wages should be. Because I cannot defend this industry when a lad comes up to me and says, I get £9.70 working in Aldi stacking shelves. I get a pension contribution. I don't have to work in the rain.
Yeah.
And I look around and go, you're never going to work in this industry anyway because you'll get outed, innit?
Yeah.
But I completely understand where you're coming from, where you don't want to risk life and limb. I've been hit by a chainsaw. I've fallen out of a tree.
Yeah.
There's equipment right behind us now that if it's used incorrectly, you are hitting the deck.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who's died using a pallet fork, but a pallet trolley, but it may have happened in a warehouse.
Yeah.
But again, this industry is so incredibly dangerous to where the rates need to be updated.
Yeah.
But you can't say to Mrs. Jones who lives down the road,
No,
oh, yeah,
but
that tree's actually $2,500 and we need a crane for it.
the problem is, you know, I saw something on Facebook the other day and it was quite, they sort of hit the nail on the head. I mean, it was aimed at sort of plumbers or electricians, but it was like, you know, guy says to the customer, it's going to cost you £1,000. And the customer says, well, I could do it myself for a lot cheaper. And they're like, okay, go on then. He's like, oh, well, I need the screwdrivers. I need the this. I need the this. And the guy's like, okay, and your van to get all your pipes, you know. So, and then the customer turns around, once you actually lay it out to them, all right, well, you may as well do it actually. So, but we're not, my biggest gripe with the industry is we are still not acknowledged as professionals. We are still tree cutters. I mean, it was certainly from, now I'm sort of stepping back into an old role as a contracts manager, but having been, you know, sat in a meeting with tree officers, engineers, hydrologists, ecologists, etc., and you walk into the meeting and, oh, the tree guy's here.
Yeah.
You know, not the ecologist here or not the arborist here, it's, or the tree man's here. And we're always at the bottom.
It's when we get classed as gardeners as well. That's where I lose my shirt.
Yeah.
So they go, well, you just do trees, don't you? And yeah, we use chainsaws, yeah. And it's like, well, don't you want to do it for the wood? I get to the stage where I just go, I'm not working for you, I'm just leaving.
Yeah.
But again, I don't understand how this industry's evolved over the years where people just go, oh, it's the tree lad, he'll just cut the tree down, he'll take the wood away. What? And it's taken years to get to that level.
No, I don't fully understand it. I think there's a lot more that can be done by our organisation bodies, you know, AA, RFS, all these sorts of people. I think there needs to be a lot more. Like I say, I never even knew tree work was a thing until I saw someone doing it, you know, and that was well after school. If we're having issues with recruitment, we should be hammering primary schools and stuff, not, you know.
There's a person out there, she's going to love it because I'm going to give her a plug. Kay, I always get her last name wrong and she hates me for it. She's Welsh, so doesn't exactly help my situation. Katie Davis from Ag Recruiting Staff. She's a STEM ambassador and she's wanting to get into primary schools.
Right, yeah.
To get more females involved in the industry and to educate younger kids. Say, when someone says you're going to go and get a job at McDonald's, you don't actually have to take that job. You don't have to work in a supermarket. You can work outside. There are genuine careers outside of the norm. But for her to try and get support from this industry, blood out of a stone. That's why every opportunity I get, I'm like, you need a job, just go speak to Katie. You need advice on something, just go and speak to Katie, because she's one of those people who are seriously involved in the industry. This year and next year is going to be her year to finally get out there to people to say, look, it's not just climbing a tree anymore. You become the groundsman, you become a team leader, you run a company, you eventually break something, you can then go off and do other opportunities. Forestry, that's another industry that people only think happens all up in Scotland and Highlands. It's one of those things. But moving more on to training for the reason we're here. How has training changed over the last couple of years?
Training itself, I don't think has changed massively. I think we're still very much stuck in the Lantra MPTC cycle of things, short 1 week courses, you know, 1 week for your felling, 1 week for your climbing, 1 week for this, 3 days for that. So I don't think it's changed massively. From our perspective, what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring ourselves, again, going back to that, wanting to be acknowledged as professionals. Well, we should be training like professionals as well then. You know, doing this sort of out the back of a car boot and stuff. Yeah, that's great. You know, back in the day, that was how it was done. But this is 2022. people are paying a lot of hard-earned money for this. And this is our key, is that people are spending a lot of money. You should get your money's worth of training. You know, like I said to you earlier, I did mine on a driveway.
Yeah.
You know, I passed the ticket, but I clearly remember standing there. It was my introduction to the industry. And I remember my mom sort of joking, going, well, if you can get through winter, you'll be all right, sort of thing. And it was middle of January. And I was trying to make notes. And I could barely keep hold of the pen because I was shaking so much trying to make notes on, I think, you know, health and safety at Work Act or something. You know, and I'm there, like, I couldn't even make my own notes. I was so cold. And I was just thinking, I've paid like 700-800 quid for this. This is not ideal. So I'd say that's where things have changed. Some industry, some trainers, should I say, are really trying to push things forward and improve the way that we deliver things. You know, we're not just whiteboards anymore, you know, or flip
Just
charts.
have to look at this place. It's absolute credit to you. When I walked in, looked at the tree and went, oh, he's serious. He's like deadly serious for this business. And the rest of the facilities.
It's a serious thing. It's a serious thing. People fall, as we alluded to earlier, people fall out of trees, you know, it is a serious thing.
Because again, going back to the whiteboard, in college, in a room, half of it was similar to your workshop. We had a whiteboard, and then that was it. And we got out in the real world, and it was a case of, oh, hang on, I don't actually have a clue what I'm doing. I know how to fuel chainsaw, I know how to use the chainsaw.
Yeah.
But why am I actually doing this? Like, why is that limb having to come off that tree? It was all that was. I never completed my college course. I got my basics, and then went, oh, I can go off and do it. I don't recommend anyone to actually go and do that because it's incredibly hard. But you'd have to go to university. You'd be investing in yourself for at least 5 years to come out with it and go, I know a hell of a lot more about the industry than what your average tree surgeon would do. Mate, I'm never an arborist. I'm just a tree surgeon. I categorise tree surgeons as the workhorses. We go, we do the job. We don't need to know every single fungus. We don't need to know every single tree identity out there. We just need to know what's best for the tree and that the client is happy with it.
Yeah.
The arborists are the ones who have sat down, who have really engaged in the books, really took on all the learning, and could literally teach me more about the industry than what I already know of it. Who actually trains the assessors then? Is there like some god level above you think?
No, there isn't. So assessors, I'm not an MPTC assessor. I'll get onto that later. But no, I'm not an assessor. I'm an instructor. There is actually no formal sort of route for entry. You know, you can't go and say, right, I'm going to do the MPTC or Lantra's training course. The way it generally works is you would need to have some formal education training. So, for example, I did my level 4 petals, which is preparing to teach lifelong skills. And as part of that, there's delivering and assessing. You then obviously need to do your first emergency first aid at work, or your first aid at work, your 3-day one. And then you need to be qualified with experience in the subject that you're teaching.
Yeah.
But no, there isn't a set sort of route to do it. To be assessors, basically you go and you do what they call a co-teach, which would be with a verifier. And he'll watch you assess a group and then sign you off as yes or no. But the key there is to have for me anyway, and the people that work here, is to have an understanding of education and how to deliver education to various different learning styles, which is why we've got the whiteboard, we've got the posters, we've got videos, pictures, so that we cover as many different learning styles as possible. So like you say, by the time you're out there putting the saw into the tree, you've got a rough idea of what you're supposed to do and why, because knowing why you're doing things is pretty important.
It is. So, listen, I've had a question for 2 minutes going. I'm going to ask you this. I just forgot. I apologise for people listening and watching the podcast. It's my first one of the year. I had a lovely break. Thank you, everyone, for asking. Do you have to... Again, I'm back in the CS days. I know they've all changed. I'm not getting into any of that. Cause
no, let's not move on to numbers.
No. So, for you to teach CS 38, 39, would you have to hold that ticket?
Yes. Right. And anyone who teaches without it, it's how can you teach someone to a standard that you've not even achieved.
So you've had to, I always call them idiot tickets. So have you got the pole pruner ticket as well, Dan?
I don't have a blower ticket. I can't bring myself. There is a blower ticket.
That wasn't round when back in the day. The worst one I always knew about was the pole pruner. There's a blower ticket.
There's a blower ticket. Yeah.
Oh. Well, I thought that was a stupid question to ask you, but it's
Tom, but this is the world that we live in. We live in a world of liability. And
but doesn't it get to the point where you go, I've got 55 tickets. You'll need a ticket just to tie a bleeding bowline next.
Well, they're trying to push away from a lot of larger companies now will not allow their staff to tie knots, which personally I think is very dangerous.
Yeah.
It's only my personal opinion, but you're saying that there's certain larger companies, that will say, right, you can only use stitched prusik loops, and those prusik loops must be fixed to the carabiner so that they can't slide or anything like that. Now, I understand why they're doing that, because you always have to sort of work to the lowest common denominator, so to speak. But let's say that person ends up in a situation where they need to self-rescue and potentially have to untie things and retie things.
Yeah.
And he's going, oh, God, I haven't done that in 5 years since I did 38 because I've worked here for the last 4 or 5 years and I've never been allowed to tie a knot. The amount of people that we that we get turning up for rigging courses where day one is, right, guys, bowline, clove hitch, and you genuinely think, like, how have you got this far?
Yeah. It's like, because I got to the point where, like, tape slings become my best friend.
Yeah.
But I knew what the limits were on it.
Yeah.
You'd switch back.
A lot of people don't.
No, that
a lot of people don't. We've I've had people on rigging courses that, quite often, if they've been in the industry a while, I'll sort of try and gauge how they do things, because I think part of being a trainer, one of the great things is that you learn stuff from other people, And quite a few times I've come in and I'm like, okay, you definitely can't put that piece on a little Leon sling that's rated to 24 kilonewtons and you're putting on a 2 meter section of oak that's 500, it's going to break. But I didn't know that's just like how some people have learned. And
for like learning, because you've got a knot board over there and it put me to shame. I know about 5 of them nowadays because I've had to learn how to produce a podcast, so excuse me on that. But learning your knots, you accomplish something inside to go, I know how to do, like, I'll use based on a Blake's hitch or a +6. Yeah, I know how to put me rope through the petrol zigzag, push it up, clip it in. Okay, I'm ready to go.
But that's where a lot of health and safety advisors are going, because it's that reduced liability. It's the less my staff need to think, the less they're going to cock up.
Yeah.
Excuse me, French. The less I've got to worry about, the better I sleep at night, because they're not tying their own systems. But again, like I say, I think it's a detriment to them.
Yeah, massively. I'm really going to piss people off now, but I have to say it.
That's easily done.
I've never had an issue using a +6 or Blake's hitch.
No?
Never had an issue.
No, they've been used since tree work began.
I switched over to a spider jack. I nearly killed myself twice on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That thing up there, the zigzag.
Yeah.
I can't get behind Petzl anymore. Petzl is a brand I don't recommend to anyone because I'm a bit fed up with seeing the amount of recalls.
I'm with you.
Tell me the last time you've seen a recall on a +6.
Never. I must admit, the zigzags that we've got, we don't teach anyone on zigzags. We only teach people on hitches and prusiks for that reason.
It's the safe option.
A, it's fundamentals, and B, hitches slide, they don't break. Yeah. I mean, for Petzl, for the Mark 1 to come out and they just turn around and said, oh, well, you're all using them wrong, to start with. And then the second, Mark 2 broke, and then it was like, oh, well, you're using it spread out, around a stem. You shouldn't be doing that, and you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. Yeah.
No one ever tells you, oh, you're using...
It's how much are they? 170 odd quid. They last a year. If you sideload that, I'd love to see a test. I'd love to see a test where a climber takes a pendulum swing and cross-loads that against a branch.
No. No, because you know what would happen?
They're fantastic. I know what would happen. The links would snap. There's no question. There's no question. But I do see the benefits. I definitely do. You know, the consistent friction, all of that sort of stuff. But once I got my hitch cord sorted, my hitch cord is just as fast as that.
Because I started off on +6, and then a friend of mine showed me a VT, and I was like, oh, I really like this. Dude, I was shit scared using it for a while, but I finally got used to it.
Yeah.
And then I seen all these spider jackery videos from Australia. I thought, I can do that. So I got it, set it up. I was on the deck within 2 minutes, but I went, you know what? The streamlined aspect of the process, it appealed to me so much more. And then over that course of 6 months, my productivity for the company shot up.
Yeah.
And then I looked at going fully SRT. I don't understand SRT. I'm never going to understand it.
It's a different way of looking at trees, definitely.
But looking at the mechanical devices in the industry, I do like them.
Yeah.
But I'm hearing too many stories. There's a story came out 2 weeks ago, which I'm going to have to pause the podcast, go and find it, because it says, I think it's from Notch. I think it's...
Is this the rope runner where they've said it's not for commercial use?
Yes.
It's not. See, I didn't understand the response from Notch. Now, Notch's response on that particular, can I mention who it was?
Yeah,
Fly switch.
Yes,
on her post.
Yes, we reshared that post because that's where it came up to me. And it's not meant to be used for commercial.
Well, they're saying that the warranty doesn't cover it for commercial. Now, is that them saying that it's not fit for use for commercial? Because why would you then go and bother to have it CE marked?
Well, that's how I'd read it.
That's exactly how I'd read it. If you're not willing to stand behind a product and say, well, we'll warranty it depending on whether you're climbing a tree for fun or whether you've got a handsaw attached to you and your mom's giving you a £5, now that piece of kit is not safe or not to be warranted. It doesn't sit right with me, that doesn't.
No, but you could quite happily wear a Blade 6, a +6 or other options. And
I still do. I climb personally on an XT, either on a double rope hitch climber system or a rope wrench.
We'll talk about super working in a minute as well, because I had to text you a couple of weeks ago saying, when's this actually been around? And you messaged me like, fuck that long.
Pretty much since 2005, technically.
Yeah, right. I've completely gone off course, so get back to my question. So, covered who trains you. So people who want to come to ETC, for example, what can they do to ready themselves?
Okay, well, I think probably the most important thing is to ready themselves in terms of turn up here one step ahead of the next guy.
One step ahead. Don't be going out the night before.
It depends on the course that you intend on doing, but certainly with tree climbing, one thing that we've started doing is sending a list of knots out first and saying, look, get used to tying these at home.
Yeah, I like that.
You know, at least then when you turn up, you're more focusing on climbing the tree as opposed to, oh, have I got the bow line right? Am I going to fall out the tree? Yeah. I mean, we use spliced ropes, but of course there are certain elements like pole climbing, etc., where they do need to tie knots. So yeah, I'd say certainly for climbing, get your knots sorted first. Okay, your basics, your bow lines, your clove hitches, your prussicks, etc. Your stopper knots, your figure of eights, etc. Alpine butterfly, super knot. Chainsaw, that's a little bit different. Chainsaw's a little bit different. You can certainly read up on the sort of the HSC guidance, the AFAG leaflets, the FISA leaflets, etc. But unless you've got someone suitable to show you around a chainsaw, I'd say leave that for the instructors.
Yeah, I hope you're going to agree with me on this. Don't go onto YouTube and start watching people.
No, it is. No, that is one thing that I do say to the students. Certainly on the sort of traditional chainsaw maintenance, cross-cutting and felling courses is, avoid YouTube until you've passed, only because people will then go and they'll be like, oh, look, that's a swinging Dutchman. And then they'll try and do it on their assessment on a 6-inch tree. And it's like, you know, the assessor's just thinking, oh, what on God's earth have you been taught? So no, I always put it in the terms of, it's a bit like your driving test. Certainly your initial chainsaw course, a bit like your driving test. It's learn to do it to pass the test, and then everything else will change. You know, when you leave, you'll be, you know, doctoring your hinges slightly, or, you know, cutting lower, cutting higher, cutting faster, all these sorts of things you then learn. You know, no one ever learns what happens when the back end comes round while you're on a roundabout, does it? No. You learn that afterwards. So yeah, certainly I would say avoid learning from outside sources, especially when you don't know how legitimate they are. You know, if your old man's an MPTC assessor or a Lantra assessor, you can pretty safely say, because they're all going to be teaching the same sort of thing. Well, I'd like to think they were anyway. But yeah, certainly learning some of the weird and wonderful ways of YouTube. I'll be the first one to say I've learned so much off YouTube.
Yeah, I've learned a podcast off YouTube.
It is knowing what to use.
If you could pick a course that everyone should do, but no one actually ever wants to do it, what would it be?
I'd say pruning.
I wouldn't take that course.
But I think the course needs to be improved. I don't think it's long enough. It gives you a like, that's a reduction, that's a this, that's a that. You know, it doesn't give you an in-depth enough understanding of tree physiology, etc., to walk away from that course and be like, right, I know exactly why I'm reducing that tree, or why I'm not reducing that tree. Do you see what I mean there? But I don't know, I would say it's probably a course that doesn't even exist, although it does sort of get covered by a lot of the modules. But health and safety and emergency planning, I think, is the biggest thing.
I remember it getting covered. When I was freelancing with a guy called Paul, and he went, "You do beautiful prunes," and I went, "I just hack the tree till it looks okay." What?
Yeah, trees aren't designed to be a round wall.
Yeah, I was miles around them, and that looks absolutely beautiful. Now I just do what I think the client wants and what's in the best interest for the tree.
Yeah,
I didn't actually know I was really doing it correctly in some way.
Yeah.
But again, it's like that for a lot of lads. We start off and we just go, we'll cut it here. We go out the tree, we look at it and go, oh no, I've left that like branch that sticks out massively. Like, that's a nice saw. We need to make that look.
In a romantic world, I had this with one of my students last week actually. And in a romantic world, I think arborists have a duty of care to educate clients and say, look, Mrs. Goggins, your round ball, like, yes, it may look great to you, but actually that's terrible for the tree. It's going to cost you more money. You're going to be having us back every single year. Eventually, it's just going to run out of steam and it's going to keel over. Let's think about doing X, Y, and Z, or we won't do it every year. We'll do it every 3 years or whatever. But I mean, we're talking ourselves out of work, but I don't actually agree with that, because I think
that's where you build loyalty. Become an arborist to where you
exactly.
Go, right, yeah. I'm going to talk myself out of this job where I know what I'm doing right.
Yeah.
I can quite happily say I've never done a pollard in my life. I've been asked to do them.
Yeah.
But I still don't understand why they're still getting done nowadays. Obviously, if you've been pollarded before, you've got no option but to carry on with it. But I've had clients who rang me up saying, I want my tree looking like this, and it looks like this behind us.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to do that. I'm sorry.
No.
But you look at it and go, that's an £800 job.
Yeah.
Or I'm not doing it.
I think the reason why trees are still getting pollarded, and this is just a very quick thought on it, so, not thinking about it too much. Very simply, wrong tree, wrong place. It's a cyclical thing that was done back in the day. Stafford is a prime example. Someone about 30 years ago thought, I know, we'll just pollard everything. And they did. The problem is now the local authority has a massive bill every year to just, when we used to have the highways contract, it would just be that soul destroying, right, I've got that street and that street and that street, just thousands of pollards every other year. And it was just, if it's in that cyclical pruning system, you've got to stick with it, but yeah, I certainly wouldn't recommend it for new trees. But places like, was it Bristol? They've turned around, and because the pruning's so expensive, they've turned around and said, if you want to prune your own trees, your own street trees, crack on.
No.
Yeah.
Probably.
Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was Bristol, but certainly I know a lot of local authorities have been considering community
Whatever happens to the local authority tree gang? It's one of those bills where they just went, we'll cut them out straight away. Because I remember, obviously when I was getting trained,
management companies, that's what it is. PFIs, the AMEs,
PFIs,
the AMEs,
Sheffields,
exactly that though. And I think that's what it is. Southampton recently brought theirs back in a couple of years ago. I saw them at the ARB conference, and I sort of looked at them as a beacon of light, because I mean, most of the guys that used to work for Rob on the contracting, when they had a local authority contract, there was a sense of pride. You're working in your own town. You're working on trees that you drive past every day.
Yeah.
But for a lot of companies, no, they'll be bringing someone in who's driving down from, say, Birmingham or whatever, to come to Stafford, to not care, just do their, and just make the money.
Yeah. I've seen lads in the M25 come up to Nottingham to do work, and I'm going,
yeah.
Are you up here?
There's people going.
We've been on the job and we won it. How much did you charge? I was about 600 quid less than what we were thinking of doing.
Yeah.
We're 5 minutes down the road.
We heard of a gang from Manchester driving down to Exeter to work, and it's just like, wow.
How is that profitable? But somehow they still make it work.
Yeah. I genuinely, I don't know, but rates, council, I don't know. I'm not too clued up on exactly how the councils work, but the things you hear all the time is central government aren't giving them the money that they need. Yeah. They're prioritising other things that,
But each year our taxes still go up.
Well, yeah, and then you had, the case of, I don't know if you saw the HSE thing just in Stafford here. I actually was there the day that it happened, because we had to tidy up the tree. A guy got killed, local authority tree. They've just been found guilty against the Health and Safety at Work Act by the HSE. The HSE took them to court, and they just had to pay out, I think it was £300,000 fine.
No, that's not the one I'm thinking of then.
It happened a couple of years ago.
Oh, no.
But it only went to court sort of last month or the month before.
So what are the type of courses that you run here? Do you run your basics all the way up to... Is there an SRT course now? Has that finally come out?
There is a Lantra SRT course. We will be delivering that at some point. At the moment, we're predominantly your arbor forestry units. Sort of everything from your chainsaw maintenance up to rigging. And then all your little quirky courses, your bracing, etc., which are quite few and far between, because the demand for them is not there. The vast majority of courses are your core units. Yes. It seems recently anyway, with the influx of new starters, the core units seem to be the big sort of sellers, so to speak. But we'll do anything. One thing we're very keen to do in the future, we're still very new, so we're finding our feet. But we're looking to do more CPD courses, things keeping staff engaged, upskilling staff, as opposed to, why send them on a chainsaw refresher for their 3031 when you could send them on a medium fell course instead? And then that benefits you. They become more productive, they become safer, your liabilities, boxes ticked. We're looking at certainly more CPD based things, pest and diseases, tree ID. We're very lucky here. We've got hundreds of acres of new forestry. New plantings, old plantings, the odd veteran tree. So we're looking at diversifying things, definitely. And we're always happy to hear from employers. If an employer, for example, we've got a local company coming to us because they've got 4 or 5 guys, they're coming to us in March, and simply they've just sat down and worked out that the cost of repairs is ridiculous for their chainsaws and stuff. And they're basically sending them on a troubleshooting day where we're going to teach them how to sharpen again, go through maintenance again. But it's little things like, the head forester, he sat down, he worked out how much it was costing, and he's like, right, you guys need to go and learn how to look after saws again.
But it's one of those things, isn't it? Because when I got qualified, I didn't know there was a thing called a refresher course. Yeah. And you go through years and you pick up bad habits and all that stuff, and then the next generation go through the system and you go, where did you learn that? It's in college. Well, we weren't there in my day.
Yeah.
And then you don't... I put lads on refresher courses, but I didn't want to do it because I didn't want to go in and for an assessor to go, yeah, you're messing that up, you're doing that wrong.
Yeah,
and it's I've been doing it 10 plus years, I know what I'm doing. Yeah. And I know there's lads who are listening to this podcast going, well, yeah, I might have done that wrong and I might have done this wrong. Yeah, I'm going to have to go on a refresher course. But you go on a refresher course and you come out and you know all the latest techniques, and it just makes you a more valuable surgeon.
Refresher, for me anyway, refresher courses aren't about necessarily telling you that you're doing things wrong.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to think that I'm a realist. An inch is as good as a mile in this job. If you slot it past that gutter and it doesn't take the gutter off, that's a good fell.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's the way it is. I always approach them of, you know, one of the most nerve-wracking things I ever did was stand up in front of, you know, a bunch of foresters. I'm not a forester, I'm an arborist. On a chainsaw refresher course, and you know, I'm looking, there's like 100 years experience staring at me.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, what
You know, thousands of tons, and you're
yeah, you felt more than I've even seen, you know. But it was just, you know, I started the course off of, right, if I can learn something from you and you can learn something from me, we're all winning. And it's just a case of, it's not a case of you're doing it wrong. It's a case of try this or try that. You know, that might be I can see your back hurting because you've been doing it this way. Well, why not think about doing it this way? Or, for example, you know, quite a common one is boring through and the saw starts bouncing around and the next thing you know, they've cut through their hinge. But it's as simple as, did anyone ever tell you can always cut from the other side of the tree? And then when it's kicking back, it's kicking out the back of the tree, not the front. You know, just little things like that can help.
What was it like running your first course?
Nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
I won't lie. I was quaking in my boots. I was very lucky in the sense that I did a lot of co-teaching. And I think that's very important. I think there's a lot of people who come into the industry, they get the tickets and they go straight into training without ever having shadowed an experienced trainer. So I was quite lucky in the sense that I worked with Martin Spooner a lot, and a number of other assessors and trainers. So I was quite well equipped when I went into it. I'd done it, but without being in charge of it, if that makes sense. But yeah, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't terrified.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you want to do the best by them. And that was the pressure. It wasn't, I don't really, I'm one of those people, I sort of don't care what you think of me. I'd like, you know, as long as I can get across to them what they need to know and turn them out as a safe operator at the end, and set someone up for a career in one of the greatest industries in the world, that's what makes me tick. There are some trainers out there who do it for the bravado. Oh, I'm an assessor, you know, you think, and it's inevitable. They're in every industry.
Oh, yeah.
So no, it was more a case of you're paying me to do right by you, and I need to make sure I do right by you. And that was all I was concerned about, not whether they, you know, think that my felling cut's not as great as theirs or as great as their mate back at work. Couldn't care less. As long as you get what you need at the end of it, I'm happy.
Have you ever had a course where you just had to tell the candidate, look, you are just not cut out for this, mate?
Yeah, unfortunately so. And I try to sort of, you do have to be honest with people. And I mean, there's a way of being honest. You know, there's your crap, go away, think about doing something else. Or, you know, just calm down, relax. It's the first tree you've ever climbed, for example. They tend to be the ones is where people have come in and someone said to them, right, what you do is you do your chainsaw maintenance, cross-cutting and felling. Then you do your climbing, then you do your chainsaw from rope and harness, and there you go, and they book courses on the trot.
Yeah.
And quite often, like with climbing, you'll have someone climbing, and then they'll come back the next week, and you're like, you probably should have gone away for 6 months and learned how to climb before you start terrifying yourself with the chainsaw. So we do tell people that, you know, we proactively say to students, you know, are you thinking of doing chainsaw next? If you are, go away, consolidate your skills, get more comfortable with climbing, and then come back and concentrate on cutting, not climbing.
Yeah. One ticket I've always wanted to see is like a dedicated groundsman ticket.
There is one.
Oh, well, that shut me up there, hasn't it? When did that thing come out?
There is one. I couldn't tell you the unit number, but yes, it is. There is an MPTC ticket for groundwork.
I have done my research before I came here. Yeah,
no one
didn't see it.
No one has asked us for it. it sort of covers the basics: fueling, work site zoning, rigging.
But you just hit the nail on the head. It covers the basics, where I think it should cover the basics plus a little bit of insider information.
Yeah.
I was speaking to Rory, listen on the last podcast. The groundsman will be on the floor, you'll be in the tree, and the saw blips.
Yeah.
And if the saw blips, the groundsman should know, go get the fuel tank.
Yeah.
But the amount of times I've lowered the saw down and they went, what's the problem?
Yeah.
I was just like, right, come on, lads, you've done this at least for 3 months now. You kind of know the rigmarole of it all.
That's the sort of thing. I don't know necessarily that a course could teach that in a sense.
It's bloody helpful if you came on site and you knew it.
But and that's the thing. On-site training, I think, is massive. We did some on-site crane work, or crane training, not work, training, and that was massively beneficial for them because they were doing it themselves. It was in a live environment, and that's the thing. It's recreating that live environment. So, one thing that we do offer. Sort of new starter course, which has been prompted by all these new starters. And the way that we're sort of thinking about offering it is we can either go to you, turn up, see how you guys work and help your new starters through your business.
Yeah.
Because some companies have things done a specific way. And, if their boss wants them to learn that specific way, we're happy to teach them that, obviously, as long as it's safe and everything. And then the other hand, if people haven't got 4 new starters to put a whole course on at their place, they can come to us. But one thing we are thinking about doing is actually, as part of it, taking them onto a live site. Not necessarily putting them up trees and get them dragging stuff, but take them onto a live site and sort of show them things and how the site's organised, how it's running, what the different roles are. Yeah. And like you said, little things like
you're creating that connection of. Training is this safe environment where you're not really going to kill yourself.
Yeah.
So where you're going to live site like the crane job, because you're having that crane job and you immediately go, well, there's a lot of responsibility on my shoulders. All
yeah, there is. Yeah.
Where you're in the classroom and you're going, the little crane comes in, he puts his boom up, he swings it around, you got to know about the safe working load. But you get on site and you go, all right, 250 grand's worth of equipment, I ain't messing this up. If I need to do a couple of extra cuts, I'll do it. But in the classroom, you're like, that 16-foot piece, that's at least 2 tons. Is that all right, we'll do it.
Yeah.
No issues.
There is no substitute for the real thing. Especially, I don't think you can teach certainly things like crane work and rigging. You can't teach those without putting the person. You can show someone a million times. I could be up there and be like, right, you can do this cut, you can do that cut, and the piece will do this, and I can do that a million times. Until they go up there and they start hearing the timber popping.
I was about to say, it's not even when you see it, it's when you feel it.
Yeah.
Is where you start going, okay, that's a little bit heavy. When you can, it's a rope, but you can hear the rope, you can hear the lowering, the rigging equipment, you can hear it.
The revs on the crane pick up.
Yeah, and you're in the tree going, if he balls that up, I don't have a get out. I can try and get down quickly, but if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. Because in the UK, I don't know if he's still the granddad of work, but he's in Canada now, red cut.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
When it comes down to crane,
he's the man.
Everyone just says, you just go speak to Reg. Because, again, there's no, real training from it. But again, cranes, you just go, look what Reg just done. He's managed to do it successfully. He's still around. You watch his videos on YouTube, you speak with him, and it kind of all comes together. Because we went out, quoted up a price for a crane job, and I priced it up and went, I think Reg had won at least 400 for this. And I was just going to ring him up, get him into it. We're going to look at the training. I weren't certainly going to do it myself, and I weren't going to get any of the lads to do it. You just go straight to the source, so you think you can do the best job. What do you know what the pass rate versus failure rate of lads coming through courses?
I'd have to look at numbers to give you. I would say 95%. 95%. There are companies that will advertise 100% pass rate. I personally think that is irresponsible. And anyone who, from my experience in the industry, if not everyone is safe, it's as simple as that. So I would be skeptical with 100%. From an employer's point of view, I'd be concerned that they were maybe just being given a ticket when they're not. I would much rather the trainer phone me up and say, hey, your guy who's on my rigging course at the minute, like, I wouldn't go and put him up a massive beach next week.
Yeah.
You know.
I put one lad for his wood chipper ticket, and it was like a 1 or 2 day course it was. Listen, went down, done it, come back to the yard the night, we ran over it all, went the next morning, and the assessor was literally stood next to him and had the, what's the piece of paper?
The ROA or the RAS slip.
Yeah, it was like, it was the guidance notes. So you got the question, and then you got like multiple answers.
Yeah.
And he was literally stood there with the paperwork just going, so which one do you think it is?
Yes. Yeah.
And I was like, right, I know it's only a wood chipper, but if he's doing it on a wood chipper course, is he doing it on a 30 and a 31? Or worse, is he doing it on the 38s?
I had a phone call the other day, and I won't mention any names because it's very unprofessional, but I did have a phone call the other day where it was like, hey up mate, so-and-so's been over at so-and-so's company and they've all just had their climbing tickets in a day. They haven't actually climbed a tree. I've just been there and watched them and they've just literally written out the tickets. Is that something you can do? No.
Simple as that.
It is. No, it is not. That is totally irresponsible and makes a mockery of the whole system.
Yeah.
So, no. But it's the same in any industry. I did my streetworks ticket. You know, the signing, lighting and guarding. I did that. And the guy told us a story about how he'd been investigated. You can't write it, Tom, honestly. And he literally said, right, well, what it was is I had a boss in here and he kicked off and he wrote and I was going to get struck off because I basically said, who wants to pass? And then I just passed them all. And he said, right, no, so there's no grasses in this classroom, is there? Who wants to pass? And I'll pass you all. And we all went... He's just told us that he got investigated for doing it and he's doing it again. I mean, yeah. It's as I say though, it's all fine and well until it goes wrong.
Yeah, and it goes wrong.
Yeah,
quite a bit in this industry.
it does.
Another thing that I've not, I have to be honest on this podcast, I've turned round to lads and said, you'll never work for me. Because they've come to me and said, I've just done a 5-day crash course. I don't think you can learn enough for me to be comfortable to even give you a chainsaw for a 5-day course.
Again, we get asked a lot for the 6 weeks and the 10 weeks. And it is, as I said to you earlier, about consolidating your skills. By the time you've done your chainsaw, by the time you've got to chainsaw from a rope and harness, you've forgotten how to fell a tree because you're on week 4 now. You know, it's... I understand. I nearly did it. I nearly did it when I was new to the industry. But the guy that I was working for, he genuinely said to me, he said, keep your money in your pocket, work with me for a couple of years. So, you know, I was working for a good couple of years with no tickets, under supervision, of course. I wasn't just running around by myself. Yeah. You know, I was working with very good people, but yeah, you know, I had a fairly good idea by the time I got to the lesson. So yeah, certainly someone who comes out with a level 2 after 6 weeks and all your tickets.
Yeah, because you come out and
concerned.
You end up. I've heard stories because I was out. Right, look, I don't have the time.
Yeah.
You've clearly not got the time because you've gone out and you've done it so quick.
Yeah.
I don't believe you're invested in this industry enough. What were you doing 2 weeks ago? Oh, I was a scaffolder.
Yeah.
Right, what are you going to be doing 2 weeks' time? I'm probably going to be working in a job centre because no one's going to hire me.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. I'll never get behind like a short course unless it's like something where I know I don't need a lot of training for it and it just comes to me over time.
If you put me in charge of sort of ARB training in the UK, I would go off one of the other countries, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, where some of them have more set paths into the industry. So, for example, I was reading, I can't remember which sort of state, not state, but which province or in Canada it was, but they had a very set ARB process for a climber where it was basically like you spend 18 months on the ground learning the trade, learning the ins and outs of what people do and roles and responsibilities and all that sort of stuff. You then did 18 months as a climber. So now you're at 3 years. Okay.
So it's a bit like the health service then, isn't it? You'll start off at like the bottom, you'll do all...
Yeah, and work your way up. So after 3 years, it's like, right, I'm a pretty good climber. I'm pretty good with my silky and my handsaw. Now I'm going to move on to rigging and big dismantles. And then, so after 5 years, they're coming out after 5 years, not 5 weeks, going, I can pretty much do most things. Yeah, and I think that's where
I like
the
that
industry should be, because I think I've trained so many people where, you know, I've seen them go out into the wild. I've worked for some of them, you know, where it's a case of, I've been made redundant from my business salesman job. I've got a 60 grand payout. I've bought myself a chipper and a truck because my mate in the pub said it's dead easy money. And then they're turning up to a job going, oh God, I'll do that for 300 quid. And I'm turning up going, mate, that's 2.5 grand all day kind of thing. Oh, what, can't you put that in the back of my little 6x4 IFA? No, I can't, mate. It's a beach over 5 gardens.
Yeah.
You know?
It's one of those things. Obviously, everyone knows where I was based in the East Midlands. And at the time, there was 4 other businesses, including myself. I was the newest one. And when I finally shut up shop, there was like 16, 20 of us.
Oh, yeah, it's scary how many people there are.
Yeah, and then I look at the same area now, and it's still like the same 5 or 6 that started off, and you go...
Yeah.
Because you see them, they've got like the latest Isuzu, they've got a brand new Force, and you just go, I'd be shitting myself if I had to make those finance payments every month, because all that stuff out, right?
Well, that's, I mean, you must have noticed in the last couple of years, the amount of big kit that's coming into the industry.
The best thing to happen is that bloody towing regulation setting off this year. I've got lads on the phone.
The amount of people who are pretty...
I've one of my friends at the moment, Joe. He's literally turned around and going, I was buying an ST8 last month. I was like, what are you getting out with? 12-inch.
Yeah, that was it. They're going, yes. Yeah.
But they're after going...
You'll fill your transit in 30 seconds.
I've got lads who are going, I think they're getting a 7.5 tonner now.
Yeah.
What are you sticking on the back of that? Oh, well, I've seen like a 20 XP or something to go behind it.
Yeah.
This is getting out of control.
But it must be scary though for those big companies that have got like, you know, 10, 14 ton machines sat there with felling heads on and stuff. Because that's a lot of money to find work for and to make those repayments. I do not envy them.
No, we looked at going into the big stuff. And we were looking at getting Unimogs, we were looking at getting tree grabs and everything. And I was like, yeah, I've got like 2.5 million just to put down to hopefully win the work.
Yeah.
And then I was speaking to people who were doing the work and they're like, oh yeah, I'm barely keeping my head above water. I'm like, you look so busy.
I have heard that recently. I have heard that there has been a bit of a slump for the big machines. I don't know whether that's HS2 related or what, but...
I'll get me started on HS2. So it's like the industry at the moment. The reason we can't find anyone is because they're all on fucking HS2 at the moment.
We've been training a lot of people for HS2, and it's quite scary who they're actually working for, because a lot of them are not working for tree companies. They're working for accountants who've got a mate who's set up a business. There's this new government Kickstarter scheme. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
I think that's amounting to fraud almost. I should be careful what I say, but you know, there are companies who have people sat at home being paid by the taxpayer. Yeah. You know, who are not doing tree work. They're not doing anything, but the company's making money off the back of them.
Yeah. I'm trying to think like how I can word the next bit without dropping anyone in it, or without having Boris come around and say, here for cheese and wine to have a conversation with you. There's one lad I know who thought he was working for one company, but that company was subbing to another company who was subbing to another company on top of that.
Yeah.
And I'm going, so what are you getting paid a day? And he went, I'm getting paid $150 a day. And I'm thinking, right, so the company all the way up here, what are they getting charged out at?
Yeah, $350 a man day is what I've been hearing.
Yeah, and it was going like $750, $850 a day for this little person down here who was getting a fraction of it. And he's literally going, oh yeah, but
it's false economy.
Oh, it gets better, mate. We're arriving on site at like 7:30, 8 o'clock. We've got to have this induction.
Yeah.
This induction takes us to about 12.
Yeah.
And then we'll have a lunch and we're getting on the job site at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but we're clocking off at 4.
Yeah.
And we're repeating that for every new site we're going to, so we're getting no work done. And people, what's the bill up to now? Like 50-odd billion or something?
Yeah, it is ridiculous. And some of the stories I've heard coming out, you know, from ARBs, from ecologists.
Yeah.
It's scary, really.
I thought working on the rails was bad in the short time I did that.
Oh.
And then I look at HS2 and I just go, it's got to collapse.
I'd love to know if one of your viewers is this particular firm, because it'd be ace if they held their hands up. But I did hear a story where an ecologist was asked by some ARBs, can you just watch that tree, please? And she went, why? And they went,
I've heard this story.
because they had like a 2.5 hour round trip to go buy some wedges because they got the saw stuck in the back.
No, different story I've heard.
Right.
The one I've heard was basically, can you keep an eye on this tree? And if it gets felled, it gets felled. But if it doesn't get felled, you still get paid. And he literally just went, oh, I was sitting in the van for the rest of the day then.
Yeah.
And the foreman came around, why haven't you done that tree? Oh, well, we're finished. And he just buggered off from me. It's ridiculous, right? If you're working on HS2, drop me an email, send me a message on Instagram. We'll blur your face out. We'll keep you completely anonymous. But we'll ask you a shitload of questions and go, what is it like working on HS2?
It would be really interesting to hear some of the stories, but we have heard of unqualified people on there.
There's a site, I'm in the middle of the country, I don't know exactly where I am. There's a site not that long ago. Is that a HS2?
That is HS2, yeah.
So actually, we produced on the way over. I was like, that looks expensive. That looks like HS2.
It is HS2, yeah. They've just started trial holes and that across a couple of mates' farms and whatnot. So, yeah, there's quite a big protester camp up there, actually. It's you should see it. It's like a palace in the woods made out of pallets. It's pretty impressive.
all this to save, what, half an hour, 45 minutes?
Yeah. And they reckon they're going to cut the northern branch anyway, don't they? They reckon they're going to run out of money. So, yeah, anyway.
Absolutely insane. Right, what course should there be created that isn't currently existent or in existence?
That's a very good question, actually.
Because we've already got how to file a chainsaw chain, but still a lot of struggle with that one.
I'd flip back to emergency preparedness. I'd make first aid.
I'd make a man.
As first aid is plus F is very important.
Yeah.
But I would then maybe extend that from a day to 2 days. So I've been on so many first aid courses where some have been fantastic, some have been woefully. I will never forget being on a emergency first aid at work plus forestry, okay? And then at the end of it, walked up to the trainer and said, excuse me, can I ask what your opinion on tourniquets are? And he patted me on the shoulder and he went, young man, some things are best left to professionals. To which point I just thought, well, I thought this was emergency first aid plus forestry, which includes the use of tourniquets. Granted, he had no idea that I've got a background in it. So, but to say to an arborist to leave tourniquets to professionals, in my opinion, it amounts to negligence. It is disgracefully poor. So I would say emergency planning, because like I said, I've unfortunately been part of a number of incidents, both in trees and just simple things in life, like car accidents, and knowing how to deal with it and how to prepare for it. So before it even happens, you've got everything squared away, so that when it happens, you're dealing with it, not thinking, what do we do? Where's the risk assessment?
It should be like the first course you do before you even pick up a chainsaw.
Safety.
Know how to do safety.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
On that one, mate, we're going to leave the podcast. We're turning this into a 2-part podcast now.
Cool.
Because we're still going to talk about the tree, and I'm still going to get your thoughts on a load of things.
Yeah.
One of our cameras has just started.
No worries.
Long. So, thank you very much for being on part 1.
My pleasure.
Part 2 will be out a week after this one. So, just wait for it, and we'll switch over to part 2 in a minute.
Cheers.